Good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are, and welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast pre-show on New Thought Media Network. I am Bill Marchiony. That over there is Carol Lawrence, and we're getting ready to record an episode of the podcast. This is episode number 207. And Carol comes up with a topic every week, because as you hear in the intro, she's got some questions. And interestingly, as she's describing what she wanted to talk about this week, I'm looking at the software that we use, which is called StreamYard, to produce the video and put it on the New Thought Media Network. And it's all different. They have upgraded it. It has been changed. And it's making me annoyed. I worked in software for a bunch of years, and the developers always think they're making things better. Sometimes they're making them better. They're always making them different. So the jury is out as to whether this is going to be better or not. But it is different, so I'm trying to find my way and figure out, all right, how am I going to do this with the new configuration? And you decide you want to talk about change.
In a way, how could I not come up with change? It's all over the place, everywhere. But I was thinking specifically of major things, major changes. And by the way, when you talk about changes in software, it feels major, because I know when I have to learn a new platform or new something, it's like, first of all, I used to be able to do it in a half hour. So now if I get it done by the end of the day, it's
right.
So change can be very frustrating.
Right, because stuff is helping you.
Yeah.
I do those meditations on Zoom twice a day, 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, Eastern time. I've been using Zoom, I don't know, for probably since 2015 for work stuff, and then for everything as soon as the pandemic hit. And for some reason, now that they've added their AI tools, when you go to start a meeting, it has the little icons of the meeting. And when you go to press the little camera button to start the meeting, as soon as you hover over it, it changes the buttons and expands it out so that it now says AI tools, but it moves the button you were about to press. So, it's now a moving target. And it's like, all right, thank you. Did anybody at home office try this before you rolled it out to like millions of users?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I get that feeling.
Anyway, let me go through the usual housekeeping. We're going to record an episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast any minute now. And if you have a comment or a question or something that you would like to share with us, then you are free to put it into the chat on your live social media, and we will get that showing up here so we can respond. If you're watching after the fact, then there's the website over there, bethelight.com, be-the-light.com. And there's a section for practical prayer on there. And you can go over there and click the comment button and send us a message with the same sort of content that we will answer in a future episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast. So, and y'all probably knew that, but I figured I would give that up to you anyway. Mm-hmm. And so welcome, and it's wonderful to see you. I was happened to see one of my dear friends from the affiliated New Thought Network. He was in town, so we got together for coffee this morning. And you were talking about things changing and things being different and the same, and all the pieces that are in motion. And it seems like even though it's the dog days of summer and we're supposed to be, getting into the quiet time, it's not. There's a lot going on.
Interesting that you said that about the summer, because I was thinking about exactly that earlier this morning. And is this really a downtime? When it feels really nice. Now, winter is when everything goes to sleep, so you would think that would be the downtime. But no, summer is easier because the weather is better and we're invited into chill mode. But it doesn't seem to work that way.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And then it turns out that the dog days of summer have nothing to do with dogs. It's astrological. It's Sirius, the dog star, takes up its primary spot in the night sky starting in July and going through August. And that's where the term came from. And you go, oh. Oh. Well, that's doesn't mean what I thought it meant. Yeah. There's my dog, and he's like coming in to lie in the shade. Well, so let's go ahead and start the episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast. If I can find the button to make the episode start. And as they hit it, there's got to be a pony in here someplace.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
In the dog days of summer, the middle of summer, doing another podcast episode, and Carol comes up with a topic every week. And this week the topic is change. And change is in the air, or change is underfoot, or change is underway. There's a lot of stuff that's in motion. It seems like more than usual. And your observation, that's been going on for a while.
I think so. First of all, I think we're always in a state of change. Some changes are milder, softer, but then there are others. And this was also triggered by a book I'm reading, or rereading, The Parallel Universes of the Soul by Frederick Dodson. I think it is Dodson. And so I read it a while ago, and then I was curious about it again. And I thought about sometimes when you're reading something or somebody writes it, it's all deep and mysterious, but then it really is just real simple. It's about how things change, and sometimes change happens with a simple decision. Your whole life can change in just with a decision, but then there are other external things that, like, and I pointed out to you earlier, Hurricane Sandy, that was devastating, really. And I was living nowhere near the ocean. I was in like way inland, and buildings, just crashed. And it was like looking at something on television. I was without lights and electricity and all of that for 11 days, so it was pretty rough. Mm-hmm. But it passed. It passed. Right. And then the pandemic came, and that was, like mega worse.
A couple of things changed, yeah.
Yeah, but it passed. And each time change comes, and I'm talking about big change, we get all shook up, but it's going to pass, So it made me think about, we will say to people that life is a journey. It's not a destination. So there's all this stuff that we're just kind of freaked out about. Rightfully so. It's not to diminish the importance or the devastating nature of things, but they pass. And how are we, it's like, it's part of the journey. So it's what we make of it, in a way, the opportunity to see ourselves in this time, little box that we're in, whatever this little time place that we're going through. We get to see ourselves, and we're going to be different afterwards. Mm-hmm. But isn't that with every change? We're going to be different. So, in the midst of it, isn't it worth taking a shot at trying to see ourselves within it and how we want to be when we come out of it? It's tall order. It really is. But
and maybe it's a tall order, and maybe it's the way that we're looking at it. So 10, 15 years ago, we came up with we were looking for a tagline for New Thought Philadelphia, which is, your new life begins with a new thought. And it's pretty succinct. And the entire philosophy is in there, but it gets worked out in the detail. So should be, your new life begins with a new thought, *. and then 47 chapters of how it applies, because there's some nuance. And a dear friend of mine said, well, what happens if I'm happy with the life I got now? Like, fair point. Fair point. And what we got to was the same understanding that we have when we're doing a breathing meditation. Because when we do a breathing meditation, and that's the morning and evening meditations always include a couple of minutes breathing in the silence. You take a deep breath in, and then a deep breath out. And you can only take one breath at a time. And the assumption that we're going to have another breath is just exactly that. It's an assumption. And very few people are like real nostalgic for a breath that they took in 2007. There's been this series of breaths, but your new life begins with a new thought. Your new life begins with a new breath. And just breathing into that possibility, inviting in something new, and then breathing out and releasing what's happened before is the physical experience of change happening. Now, this breath might be exactly the same as the ones that I'm remembering. And that doesn't mean that it's not something to be grateful for. I started doing these meditations at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a huge respiratory infection going all around the world. And so, it seemed kind of cavalier to say, just take a deep breath. Some people couldn't. It's like, it's the same process. So, we went with it. And that serves as a reminder that something is always happening. And it is our assumption or our the unfounded belief that the next thing that happens is going to be the same as the thing that's always happened is the one that trips us up.
What do you mean? Explain, or give me an example.
You've known for all of your life that there's a thing called a hurricane, and that it can cause damage to buildings, and it can knock out power, and it can flood neighborhoods, and it can cause a lot of damage. And it was a theoretical kind of thing that, as you were saying before, you used to watch on TV. And then suddenly, one day, without you particularly thinking anything different was going to happen when you got up that morning or when you started the week, there's this hurricane, and you're in the middle of it. And it's got this huge devastation. It's leaving tons of water and houses knocked down and power out right where you live. And the change happened whether you wanted it to or not. And it wasn't like the laws of the universe changed. It was just that particular thing happened to you. That was what changed.
So I'm thinking about that because it was really a devastating moment when I walked out of my house. It's almost like the hurricane came down the street and stopped a couple of doors before it got to us. It didn't damage my husband's church at all. It was, but the thought of what could have been was what caused me to freeze in my tracks. I hadn't seen this before, but look at this, and it could have been worse. And the only thing I could think of was who has been hurt, and it was just a lot to process. It changed everything. It changed the way we did everything, at least for the next 10 days, okay, or 12 days, whatever it was. But then life goes back to some sense of normalcy. It can, return. And then here comes the pandemic, which was way different.
Bigger.
And we're 5 years out. And from my view, life has not yet returned to what it used to be. I don't think it was supposed to. So
I don't think it's going to.
It's not going to, but there was no, why would we think that it would? Because we don't think about change. We think about liking and being comfortable where we are. So change happens and it forces you. So I'm thinking in the midst of life, can we look at change as not being something that's devastating, but maybe what is it bringing the opportunity for us to see differently or shift into something different? Because if you keep doing the same thing, nothing changes, but
Right.
attitude, there's no growth. I'm struggling with my words because I don't want to be insensitive. The pandemic brought about change and all of that and growth, but a lot of people were hurt and lost their life. I don't mean that. I wish I had a better example to use, but I don't. So it's
Yeah.
we're in, change. We know it's happening, and I don't see change as death. And oh my God, what's happening to us? It's like here comes another shift.
Right. And some people think that change is bad, and other people insist that change is good. And change is simply change. The word that came into fashion, some number of years back is disruption. And that's when something comes along and gets in the way of things the way that they've always been. And the pandemic was a huge disruption because healthcare and people's lives and public policy and supply chains and the whole rethinking that's gone on about, who can we rely on to send us our toilet paper or our surgical masks that nobody ever thought of before. And now suddenly there's a different dimension to that. And those are the unpleasant disruptions. And those are the things that we assumed would always happen. And then there are the other people, the technology companies that come along and they disrupt something that's been going for a long time. And I was actually talking about that, I think, earlier today. Over the weekend, my daughter moved away. She's now living in upstate New York. And, we're talking about how different it's going to be to have her be that far away. And I brought up some disruptions that have happened during my lifetime. Because it used to be when you wanted to communicate with somebody who lived that far away, you needed to place a long-distance phone call. Mm. They needed to be at home to receive that long-distance phone call, and somebody paid toll charges for that long-distance phone call. Yeah. And now we have free, real-time video phone calls from a thing you can carry around in your pocket at no additional charge. And that was hugely disruptive. You go around and look at all of the telephone wires that are strung on the poles that nobody's using anymore. That's a huge disruption. That's a massive change. And other changes have happened that have brought some huge benefit to the world or some segment of the world. And change is inevitable. Change itself is not good or bad. Disruption itself is not good or bad. If something that we like gets disrupted and we have to let go of something that we have a fondness for, then we call it bad. Mm-hmm. Conversely, something happens that disrupts the way things have always been, and then the change, we get to label it as good. So I have this prayer group that I meet with every week, and we've been doing it for 15, 20 years. And we used to get together in person, and I would have to drive over the bridge from Philly into New Jersey every Wednesday. And it took 45 minutes to an hour to get there, and then we would meet for an hour or so, and it took me another 45 minutes to drive home, plus the tolls, plus the gas, plus the. And the only thing that I would do is stop at the liquor store because liquor and gas are cheaper in New Jersey than they are in Pennsylvania, but that's small consolation. And we discussed having the meetings electronically on Zoom, and one of the guys who was in the group said, I don't like using Zoom, because he didn't like the way that it worked with his glasses. So we never did Zoom. And then in March of 2020, it became unacceptable to drive and get together in person with people. So we moved it onto Zoom. And it's been going okay. And we've gotten together in person a few times since then. We're still meeting every week. And now the guy who didn't like meeting on Zoom has moved to South Carolina. So he's definitely not going to drive to New Jersey every Wednesday. And what could have been a complete disruption is simply a change.
Yeah, and it's forced on you, and yeah, I guess the word force. I was trying to think if that the right word, but yeah, it because we didn't have any choice. Nobody checked in with us to see if this is a good time to have a pandemic. So, but it's I'm trying to think of things as the flow of life or the natural evolution of life, however you want to label the movement of life. things are gonna happen. So how do we see them? It's not something against us. In the Christian church, and I'm going to say way back because there's a lot of different traditional uh, interpretations of things around the Christian circle. So it's one doesn't speak for all, but one would say, "Oh, God is really punishing us because look at this pandemic, and mankind has been so sinful that God has had to do this. So this is divine retribution of sorts." And I would hear that. I knew that one well because I'd heard it so many times. And I'm thinking during the pandemic, I'm thinking, okay, so how long is it going to be before somebody says this? And some people did. It didn't get as much traction where I was as it might have in another circle, but it was right there. And I'm thinking, can we open our minds up a little bit and not always think of something happening as though it is a personal thing? It just happens. It doesn't mean that there was a whole lot of sin going on and the rain came. That's what happened up there in the atmosphere somewhere. And somebody who knows that better than me can explain what that was. But down here on the ground where I am, I'm thinking, this is massive. Okay,
Yep.
so, how do I look at it from where I am so that number one, I don't fall apart, and which I'm not. I'm standing here looking at all this thinking, yeah, things really can happen to us, and it's not personal. Everything I think isn't spiritual. It can just happen on our. I think what I have in mind is that life is a journey, not the destination, and
Yep.
that keeps coming back to me because even with a crisis, nothing stops. It still keeps going.
Right. And the story changes, but it's still the story. Let's take a break, and when we continue, I want to talk about tragedies and insurance claims.
Get inspiration in an instant. God calls are the gentle and uplifting moment of truth to help you remember that the bright light of God's love is shining right now as you.
It's your God Call with Reverend Bill.
Start your 2-week free trial today, and you'll get a phone call 4 times a week from Reverend Bill with an uplifting half-minute message filled with insight, wisdom, story, and fun.
Let your light shine.
You can answer the call to listen to it live or let it go to voicemail so you can hear it later. After the free trial, your subscription is just $5.95 a month. The details are at godcall.org. God calls are disruptive, intentionally.
Whenever you write something, put on a gold star.
They take you away from your routine to remind you about the truth of who you really are. They come at random times between 8:15 a.m. and 6 p.m., so you won't be expecting them. And somehow, the message is exactly what you need to hear at the time.
Magic is loose in the world.
It's a moment of motivation in the middle of your day. Find out more and start your 2-week free trial now at godcall.org.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
Having a conversation about change, and I promised before the break that we would talk about tragedy and insurance claims, which are two sides of the same coin. Now, I've been on the board of trustees of a bunch of New Thought spiritual communities, and as a fiduciary, you know that you need to have insurance, liability insurance, and this insurance, and the building insurance, all the rest of it. So you have insurance because that's how you behave responsibly. Also trained as a practitioner that what you focus on is what you're attracting. So there's the notion that if your consciousness is right, then you don't need insurance. And we get insurance anyway because it's the thing to do. Because stuff happens. And sometimes what happens, I'll tell a story. A friend of mine, one of my students, one of the defining events in her life was when her dad was killed in an air crash. And this was many, many years ago. I think it was the 1960s. When I was a kid, I actually read a book, and it had a story about what happened in this particular flight. And so her dad was on that plane, and she lost her dad, and it had a cascading effect that affected her whole life. And she was, I mean, that's like a pivotal moment. That's a transformational experience, and really sad and really horrible, and all the things that could have been. And I knew some things about her life and her lifestyle. So she was, she was very well set financially, to the point where she didn't really need to work. And so she could do the things that she wanted to do and have the things that she wanted to have. And I said, was there an insurance settlement with the airline? She said, oh, yeah. Yeah, that was big. It's like, all right, nobody would say, let me trade Dad for a lifetime income. Just like, nobody gets invited to check their calendar. All right, there's going to be a pandemic for 2 years. When's good for you?
Right.
It doesn't happen. So the tragedy happens, and the insurance is there, and we get to engage in the world at the level and from the perspective where we are, and get to participate in whatever those changes are. Now, I look at the flooding and people who are building cabins in a children's camp in the flood zone next to a river in an area that's called Flash Flood Alley. Really? Really? Do you think possibly the change that happened there is something that could have been predicted? Was there a different invitation that was open? Mm-hmm. Did you need a siren to be the warning system when FEMA had been coming through for 10 years saying, you got to change this? And then something changes. And then there's a tragedy, and insurance, and rebuilding, and grieving, and then something happens. Then there's change. Is that the way that I would have called it? No, in the same way that I wouldn't have said 2020 is a good year to have a pandemic. Some things just happen, and then something else happens, and something else happens. The spiritual perspective on that is, how can we be okay regardless of what's happening? And also, how can we thread that needle between, I have high consciousness, I don't need insurance, and this is a world where things happen, I need insurance. We got to be in that place of balance ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think I agree with you 100%. I also think, we have insurance. And when you talk about consciousness, I think about, okay, so what's the collective consciousness here? Like if it was just me, I might be able to float this with that, But I got a whole lot of other people here, and nobody's going to say, well, I'm not quite agreeing with, you don't know. So you make a good adult, intelligent decision and go with the insurance. I think that the spirit, and that might be me trying to make spirituality work, but I think it does. And you look at all the aspects of it, and then you make an informed decision based on that. The thing in Texas, I mean, I've heard it talked about in the same way that you did, and I'm just thinking, like, there's no answer to this, is it? I mean, that I would care to be the one to say. I would not care to do that. But all over the same way, people are making the same kinds of decisions with our lives,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. It might not be front and center, but it isn't until something happens. You think, okay, this crap has been like hanging over my head for a while. And we gamble, I suppose. And that's not a really good thing to do.
Yeah, okay, and I'm going to get real metaphysical on us and point out that it's all a gamble, and that if you stretch your timeline out long enough, everybody who's here, if you stretch your timeline out for 100, 150 years, we're all gone. We're all going to be gone from some reason, whether it's dying peacefully when we're 120 years old or something else. And pointing at that and saying, oh, well, if it's this particular circumstance on this particular timetable, it's bad. And if it's that particular circumstance or that particular timetable, then it's good. Who are we to judge? I know the things that I'd prefer.
I just so that yeah, I'm trying to follow you when you say that. So so does it mean that listen, we're all going to leave here, right?
Yeah.
We're all going to leave. And things are happening, so you could be caught in the happening and that was just are you saying that was your time to go?
It's like it changes the story from oh my God I'm going to die to of course I'm going to die, and then it's a matter of timing and convenience. There is no good time to have a pandemic. There's not really a good time where people say yeah that's the day where where it's gonna end for me, for the most part. But circumstances happen and things unfold, and if we stretch the timeline out 100 years, are you anticipating beyond being 170 years old or whatever?
Certainly not.
Right. Okay.
Certainly.
Do you have specifics in mind? No. Neither
Maybe
do
because
I.
we don't. Yeah, yeah. So I think the best we can do is, like really make intelligent, informed decisions as we go. And some things are just like come on, let's just don't do this.
Right.
Because I mean, we could go rock climbing. That's what you do, right? You do rock climbing.
I used to go rock climbing.
So, or skiing or something. And I'm always up for stuff. But rock climbing would not be a good decision for me because I can't deal with heights very well. So that's not going to work. I'm going to do something, and it's probably going to be the end of me. Just be, or skiing when I know that I have two artificial knees that don't do what I would naturally think they ought to do on time. They'll do it, but the timing
It's
might
on their
be
schedule.
it might be, yeah. So okay, so we have some responsibility in this
Absolutely.
life for our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are participants in this creative process. So in
Yes.
the same way we're breathing in and taking in that next breath of life, and we're breathing out and letting go of whatever has, whatever served its purpose, whatever toxins are there that need to be flushed out. In the same way, we're inviting in a new experience and letting go of everything that's already happened. And we are also getting an idea of that next experience that we want to have and setting an intention for it. And then when we breathe out, we're letting go of doubt. We're letting go of our resistance and hesitation. So I'm not going to get in the way of that. And that's where consciousness comes in. So is it possible for me to have a happy, joyous, prosperous life? Sure. Are there going to be things along the way? Probably. Are the little things that happen along the way going to be the defining factors in my life? Or is my life going to be about the happy times with some hiccups along the way?
But isn't that how we would prefer to have the happy life with hiccups along the way?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't get to push that button in the beginning. I think we have to make it be that way as we, going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how's this going to, is this going to totally knock me, off the wagon? It can. It can. Unless you make a determination that I'm going to have a happy thing along the way, and this stinks, but listen, it'll be over soon. That sounds a bit cavalier, but sometimes that's just the best way to look at it.
There's a route that I take when I'm going into Philadelphia or across to New Jersey, and some few years ago they put speed bumps in, and it's now inconvenient because you have to slow down to make it over the speed bumps without damaging the car. And you used to be able to drive through there really quickly, which of course is why they put in the speed bumps. So I understand my participation in this. I could well be one of the reasons that there are speed bumps on that particular piece of roadway. And I'm still free to choose whether I want to drive down that route or if I want to take a different route that's inconvenient for other reasons but doesn't have the speed bumps. So the speed bumps happen and we deal with them. And I could spend my life complaining about those idiots who put in the speed bumps on my perfectly good route to slow me down and interfere with me and point to all of the problems that it is as far as I'm concerned. Instead of saying, oh, now it's a route with speed bumps.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in life.
Mature way to look at it.
Well,
You know, yeah, I mean,
okay.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's worth taking a second, right? Because
Yeah.
I have these little things that I say, and people laugh at me. You know, I say, listen, just get a grip on your little self. This is this is really, you know, one of those pissed off moments. But how really bad is this? You know, how really? I got a story. We got a time for my quick story.
Yeah, tell a quick story and then we'll take a break.
Okay. So I pull cards for myself every single morning, bar none, every morning. And it's just a part of what I do. And I was on a roll. You hear me? I got a plan. And the cards every morning were just lining me up. My feet were not on the ground for 2 weeks. so, so I get this morning, I get this one card that stopped the whole thing. And I was totally floored because I have been used to this succession of whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, the first thing you don't do is get upset. You accept it, that I'm doing my head thing. This is what you do. And I said, but I don't want to go through the rest of the day like this. So let me pull a card and just get my normal, and I'll pay attention to this, but I want to be cool for the rest of the day. So I shuffled really, really good to make sure. And you know what happened, don't you?
You pulled the same card.
I pulled the same card. And I laughed. The first thing I thought of is, first of all, you can make this excrement up. So all you do is, and you know, to your point, you say, okay, this is it. I heard myself, get a grip on your little self.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. Regroup and restructure and see it as a point of grace, opportunity, all of the positive things that this could mean. It didn't undo everything else that had my feet off the ground. It didn't. It just simply said, do this, which was not consistent with what my next step was on my to-do list.
That's right. Your ego knew what was supposed to come next, and here's this card coming and getting in the way. Damn.
That's
Damn.
right.
I hate when
That's
that
right.
happens.
And you know, and I can't throw it away because I'm committed to the process. So I'm like, okay, all right, we'll do this. We'll do this. But I thought about it as I walked away from it, and I just smiled because isn't that what life is like? It's just, you know, we're co-creators. So how you bring or you perceive that partnership is certainly up to you. But to me, the partner spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a deal from the beginning that we're in partnership here. So if we hit this place, I can't just sign out of the partnership. I could, but
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to help.
yeah, it's not going to help. I mean, you know, it may work for a little while here, but I mean, you're in partnership. So that's like, to me, a whole lifetime, a picture of a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
We're in partnership. So you use the word ego, and I really appreciate you using that word because I really didn't think of it that way. But that's exactly what it is. Exactly. And I'm thinking, well, now that you say that, okay, well, the little rascal got out of control.
Yep.
So, yeah. But there's like right now, it doesn't look like I got a problem, right? I don't really, because I laughed so much at it all morning because that's what I choose. You know, I choose
Yeah.
to see this as this is part of the story that I'll tell later.
Yeah. And you don't choose, you're not doing this daily spiritual practice, this process, because you need to get the cards that are going to affirm that you're so cool and everything is so great. You're doing the process because that's the process. And the reason that I knew that when you drew another card, it was going to be the same card, is that we had the same thing happen a lot. When the teen groups used to get together, we'd do a game called Current Realities, and we'd take some wisdom deck, and each person would take a turn pulling a card out of the wisdom deck, and you read the card and you say, this is what that has to do with my life in the last 24 hours. And a lot of grown-ups say, well, you just hand the cards around and let everybody pick one. It's like, no. You hand the deck around, let somebody pick a card and read the card, and then put it back in the deck. And the reason you do that is because you don't want to take the card out of circulation for the other people in the group. There are times in a group of 12 that we've had the same card come up 4 times. In a deck of 50. Because everybody's going through the same stuff, and Spirit says, no, we're gonna go over this until you all get it. Same thing.
Yeah, it's committing to the process ahead of time. You agree that this is the best route for me, my connection with Spirit. And I enjoy this connection. I got some others. Yeah, I got some others. And they agree. But this one is what I said, okay, we're going to go with this. And it's delightful. It's fun and all of that. But, and by the way, I have a habit of, like you said, I don't take the card out. I put it right back. I'm thinking, I hope I don't see this again. I really hope I don't see this again. But to be authentic and honest to the process, you put the card back.
Yeah. Damn, now I really have to deal with this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's take the promised break and then continue with a practical prayer, which will be about the journey and the process of change.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
What a wonderful conversation we've been having about change. And what's the saying? Well, the only thing that never changes is change.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the inevitability of change. And the time that we have the most challenge with change is when we make the assumption that it's not going to happen. Oh, things are going along great. I'm just going to have things go along the same great way indefinitely. Something's going to happen. It always does. There's always something. And it doesn't need to be a tragedy. It doesn't need to be awful. As change happens, it can be a transformation instead of tragedy. There is the possibility of that journey that we are on being one towards uplift. And that when the unhappy things come along that seem to set us back or get in the way of what we thought was our highest and best, in fact, it's making the way for something new. So having a building get destroyed by a fire or a flood is a tragedy for the people who are in the building and everybody who's counting on going home there. On the other hand, that's what makes more real estate so that you can put up a new building. And we don't want to be cavalier about it and say, oh, well, see, it doesn't matter at all, because it does matter. That's where we're living. And it's also possible to be present to the transformation, to the change that's happening, and be part of the process. So the prayer today is about the journey and being involved in a process of transformation and change in a way that brings good and more good and more good into our lives. So as it's safe and comfortable to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. And we do that so that we can let go of our immediate attachment to the surroundings, to think that what's there now, or has been there up until now, is somehow permanent. It is all subject to change. Everything is subject to change. Everything has been evolving and unfolding and changing since the very beginning of time. Everything is, in fact, one infinite creative power expressed in a unique and particular way. And if we think about all of the change that must have happened in that limitless intelligence, that infinite love, that divine power and energy and presence and substance, all the changes that needed to happen to bring our current form into being, that's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of complexity there. And that process is continuing. So change is inevitable. Transformation is happening. What has served up until now has the possibility of falling away to make room for something new. So the prayer is not for that process to change, but for it to bring uplift and clarity in peace and harmony to me and to each of us listening. Good and more good is available. Peace and harmony and love unfolding is available. Peace of mind and presence to that creative process, to the transformation, to the change that's going on. Being an active participant in the journey is available to each of us in our own way. There is no need for catastrophe or tragedy. There is no need to have the changes that are happening become the final life-defining event. There's a process unfolding. There is an infinite love revealing itself. There is a divine light that is shining through and as all of creation, through and as each of us in our own unique way. So I know that that light is shining in a new and wonderful way. In some ways, it has the opportunity to shine even more brightly, from a different angle, with a different perspective, different tone and shade and nuance. And that difference is not bad or good. It's simply different. So I invite the newness, I invite the freshness, and I invite the understanding that good and more good is unfolding. And I know that each one is responding and participating and taking part in this creative process in a way that brings the maximum of uplift into experience for us and for everyone we're in contact with. And that creative law that creates everything, that one divine power and presence that's sharing itself as all of its creation, is sharing itself as this process now, as this next unfolding, as this transformation and change. And goodness and more goodness is at hand. And so with gratitude for this good, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law that creates everything. And I know it's creating that goodness now. And I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
That is Practical Prayer Podcast number 207. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, everybody who's joining us on New Thought Media Network. Lynn, it's good to have you here.
You got it. You have a dashboard that I don't have, right? You see somebody.
Oh, there's a little thumbs up on the top that I can see.
Oh, okay.
If I hover over it, it tells me that it's Lynn,
All
our
right,
friend
well,
from
tell
South Jersey.
Tell her I said hello then. 'Cause
You
I
just
can't see it
did.
over here, Liz.
You just did. You just said hello to Lynn.
Okay. I'm talking to somebody that I can't see. I can't see a bubble, a thumbnail, or anything. But okay,
See? Something changed.
something changed.
Something changed. And suddenly the user interface is not what you expected, and it's time for a tragedy. Nope. It's just time for something different. Nope.
No. I see comments, and I think I have a thing here that says comments, but there's none.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that change works out on my end. They
Yeah,
just
the
be,
only
that's the way it is.
See, and there's a comment. It's from Lynn. Give it a little,
Oh, okay.
little emoji there. See?
Okay,
See?
yeah, thanks, Lynn. Thanks, I feel included.
Yeah, there you go. So you see it. Like Glinda the Good Witch said, you've had it all along.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that because I'm on this side feeling like, okay, I'm just this little square here. And yeah,
Yeah, what
so now I
happened?
feel like I'm in it. I'm all in.
All right. We're going to get out of here. Carol, thank you as always. Thank you to the folks who are on New Thought Media Network. Again, if you're watching the rebroadcast, then you can go to bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, and put a comment in over there. Thanks.
Hey.